Hello my dear friends. Recently I've been releasing a set of stories focusing on Ivo Hugh. 4 episodes under the title Clever Little Engine. Thank you to everyone who's been enjoying those and for saying kind words about them. Even if the comments inevitably get taken down. Plenty of you have asked about the models that were used to make the episodes. Well, to show the Skarloey Railway, I needed to model as much of it as possible. Engines, rolling stock, locations and all. Whilst I haven't filmed the entire progress of making everything, I have plenty of behind the scenes photos that hopefully show how these things were created. I'm going to have a showcase video discussing each model or set, and I'm letting my patrons vote which one they'd like to see next. Support the channel through the link in the description, and you can choose what video comes next. To kick things off, let's start at the start of the narrow gauge line and focus on Crovan's Gate Station. There's some context explaining to do first. My take on the Skarloey line is very much mismatch, drawing inspiration from whatever I prefer, be it railway series, TV series, or even the Talislin Railway. For filming purposes, I thought the RWS station layout was very limiting for filming and really not that visually interesting. I'm sorry illustrators, you did your best. One track with one passing loop and no clear view of the platform structures. Not great if you want more than one engine sitting at the station, like you could have at Towin Wharf. If I ever model an early era of the station, then I would go with how Crovan's Gate appears in very old engines. But the massive, over-the-top TV series interpretation won me over for a current day look. I don't like how the narrow and standard gauge lines go all over the place, but the station itself is very pretty. It's got a nice cohesive castle theme to it, which I'm sure was a reference to the town's pretty brutal medieval history. In my AU, I like to think the second narrow gauge platform was an expansion, joining on to the same passing loop. There's some sidings further along, whereas the other way is the sheds as per the railway series, with the running line sneaking past it. It is the workstation, one of the few stops on the express route, so a grander scale station built to a similar style as Tidmouth or Knapford in the TV series made sense for the standard gauge part. Right, time to actually make it instead of just talking about it. It all begins as some sketches in a notebook, plotting down rough shapes and jotting down estimated measurements to get an idea of what is possible. I did measure and cut walls for the main standard gauge building and its glass canopy, but thanks to the notes I realised I simply wouldn't have room to set it up unless it was in 2 halves. Maybe if I have a scene on the big railway here at some point, then I'll make the other half. But these stories were all about the little gang. And I had to keep in mind where the camera would be. 1mm thick mount board was used to make the main structure, which was pretty simple as it is very boxy. It's braced on the inside with foam board, and stuck together with superglue. Little bits of card folded to 90 degrees were used as brackets in the corners.
Brackets!
The window and doorways were cut out before the walls were put together. Then a turret style border added to the top. Matchsticks framed the doorways as I planned to use clay to make the bricks, which would raise the surface of the walls. Clay is obviously quite heavy, and I mix it with PVA glue, so that can make the model warp if not careful. This is why the supports on the inside are important, especially if you're not using stronger materials like plasticard. Once stuck on, PVA is used to smooth out the cracks in the clay, before a cocktail stick is used to carve the brickwork. This needs a good lot of time to do, as it's really best to do it all in one go before the clay dries. Even then, it's easy to make some lines bigger than others. It does make for a weighty and sturdy building, so it's out of the life-size building that I'm in to spray paint the mini ones. Both buildings are primed before hobby acrylics are mixed to try and recreate the brick colour. I made it slightly darker in preparation for the next step. Revel Aquacolor was used with water to coat all of the lovely paint we've just done, filling in the mortar lines. Then, after drying for a couple of minutes, enamel thinner is used with lots and lots and lots and lots of cotton buds to brush off the aquacolor. This leaves the cement colour only in the gaps, but again it's stressy work to do large sections in one go. Different shades of brown and red acrylics are then dry brushed onto the top as light weathering. Doing brickwork takes so long, might as well have just built a real wall. Oh no, here comes the windows. Naturally, to make a big station, there's lots of windows and doors to make. Thankfully, my fiance has a fancy Cricut cutting machine, so I took the easy option and borrowed that. Thanks! I might make a separate video on the miracle that this machine is for modelling, if that's of interest to anyone. For the purpose of this, it basically meant that I could print out loads of little window frames in one go, and save my hands from getting blisters. The doors were cut in 2 layers, with one having the bottom half filled in to show the wood carving. These all get painted up in green, and have clear plastic from packaging cut out and stuck on as glass. At the same time, I start on the canopies. The freestanding one is cut out of strips of basswood, or basswood? Basswood? I don't know, but it is wood. Again, using the Cricut to make tilted supports. Doing these digitally meant I could resize them for the building canopies. Clear plastic was sandwiched between 2 singular pieces of card, with the squares cut out for where it rests on the supports. Then the whole thing stuck to the buildings. A craft knife was used to score the fancy dagger boards around the edges. And yes, they do actually have a name. It's dagger boards. They help to keep rain from falling onto the platforms. Oh, the platforms! Those were made from a Metcalf kit on my own mount board cutouts. They had to be pretty big to hold both of the buildings and decent train lengths, so they're supported underneath by pieces of wood, card and foam board. Not layout quality structures, but they more than did the job for temporary filming sets like this. As I wasn't ready to film yet, I set the buildings up to see how they'd look when I did. Percy was not happy about this, but Peter Sam was more than raring to go for the opening scene. This was the first set I filmed on for Clever Little Engine, getting out as many industrial buildings and scenery pieces as possible to fill in all the empty spaces. As this is one of the bigger sets, and the first one I've had the luxury of filming on a table with in my new studio, there wasn't much room for long trains to run in and out of shot. Still, I used this testing phase as an opportunity to film a little trailer ahead of the Audrey Extravaganza 3. Shows you when this was filmed. As does Bramble, who is no longer a kitten like he was when he helped to make this set with me. thank you for alighting at this video to see how I made Crovan's Gate Station. Or at least 2/3 of it. As I mentioned, this is only the first of many locations I've modelled in miniature. So do go and choose what you'd like to see next on my Patreon page. See you then. Many thanks to my brilliant channel patrons: Alex Goodman, GBH Train, D0280 Falcon, Sean Tempest, Random Thomas Fan, Dark White 73, Andrew Dyack, Reese Lee Walter, Ryan RTS, Ewan Pentland, Jude 72, and Steam Power 4472.